Hello, welcome to our three-part course, Ignite the Healer Within. This is your opportunity to stop looking outside of yourself for answers. What you are looking for has likely been with you your entire life. So let's dive in and I'll show you how you are the medicine you have been looking for. Trust that you are the medicine. You were born a self-healing being. You were born with innate wisdom and intelligence to heal, right? Just by being born. The healing power of nature runs through each and every one of us. And the healing power of nature, I don't mean this in the sense of nature as healing. It is mimicked in nature. I don't mean that we can look to natural medicines as a source of healing, but that the healing power of nature is this vital force, this energy, this invisible force that runs through each one of us. And when it is free to flow, it keeps things in balance and harmony, and it provides healing, right? It is our birthright. It flows when you are aligned with your true purpose, the true essence of who you are. So, survival and procreation are always our primary goals. This is something as a species that we will always have. Our goal as a species is either to survive or to procreate. We'll come back to this, it's really important, okay? So, when you were born, you didn't know who you were, you didn't know what to believe, what to be. Right? It's over weeks or months that we start to develop the neocortex and learn who we are in the world. This is done through our five senses. Again, our five senses, the environment in which we grow up in, the people around us, that we start to begin to define our reality. We decide what we think we need to believe in order to survive. Okay? So that's a tricky sentence. I'll read it one more time. But this is when we decide what we think we need to believe in order to survive. So, some examples, and let's just back up for a second and remember that survival is essentially living. And so, as small humans, we don't have the means to go out and find our own food. We don't have the means to put shelter over our head. And so, we rely on those around us. So, some beliefs that we might start to adopt are maybe I need to be perfect in order for these people to accept me and to take care of me. Maybe I need to people please. Maybe I need to be smaller and not be so loud or big. I might need to fit in, to hide. These are just a few examples of beliefs that we may adopt at a really early age in order to feel safe in the world, in order to feel like essentially we won't die. These beliefs take us away from the unconditional state of I am, right? So I am, therefore I am. That is how we were born into this world. We don't have conditions. We are here because we were simply born. When we start to add beliefs or conditions, we move further away from our birthright of simply being just because we are. You see how that happens? So we're going to pause for a minute. If you don't already, go grab a notebook or maybe something on your computer. You can even take a screenshot and come back to this prompt. But I will stop for just a minute and give you an opportunity. And when we're writing, it's an opportunity for words to flow through. They're unfiltered, they can bypass the ego, whatever you want to call it. Maybe something comes to you in this moment, or maybe it comes to you later on. But here's a prompt to think about. When you were young, what conditions did you believe you needed in order to survive in the world? So I'll give you a moment to write that down. Maybe you journal for just a moment. You can even pause the recording. But we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so I didn't give you too much time. Again, feel free to pause the recording, take your time. Maybe you come back to this later. But this can be really transformative because we often are not aware of the fact that we aren't living in alignment with the true self, our true purpose. When we're born, we kind of enter this world, most of us at least, with a form of temporary amnesia. We forget who we are and what we're here to do. It takes time and a lot of work and looking inward in order to find that. And that is a place where I believe true healing occurs. So, this is important. Write it down, come back to it. The healing power of nature. Again, this is not nature in the sense of more natural cures, more natural medicines per se, but the healing power or the vital force that runs through each and every one of us. So, in the state of I am, we exist without conditions or limitations. This is where the healing power of nature runs freely through us. By returning to our true nature, our authentic self, the true essence of who we are, who we're meant to be, this is where we ignite the healing power of nature. This is healing. It's when we live by conditions or these false beliefs that we just talked about that we impede this healing force. So if you think about a river, right? If we put a big boulder in the middle, that's going to divert the water. It's not going to push through at such great force like through the middle or with I should take back the force with such great like ease, right? The resistance is not as great. When we add that boulder, we create more resistance. We create a blockage. We can think about that as the healing power of nature. If it's not running freely through us, there's resistance. And over time, we leak vitality. We begin to suffer. And this is when we start to see symptoms in the body. So, just to clarify that I am, this is more of like a psyche level. This is out here. I am, therefore I am. It's when we start to create conditions which happen in the mind that we begin to manifest disease or illness in the body. The body tells a story of what's playing out in the mind. So when we look at the self healing nature of all humans, we can see that nothing is random. The body is constantly making adjustments to support what I'm calling the psyche. That might not be the best term, but to support the psyche and how we navigate the world or our safety. Because remember, again, our goal as a species is to survive and to procreate. And so everything that's happening is in order to keep us safe in a way. So, what if symptoms or conditions were nothing to fear but a message from within? I love this. I love this way of thinking about it because often we're taught that symptoms, conditions, dis-ease, suffering, it's happening to us. But when we look at symptoms or conditions as a message, perhaps there's a shift that can occur. Perhaps we can see this as something that is happening for us to pay attention, for us to get a message. Again, symptoms are not random. Can we see now that symptoms are a serious call to reconnect? If we didn't experience dis-ease in the body, we wouldn't really be called to look inward, to pay attention. We would keep playing out the same dialogue in the psyche. And I would argue that over time, that would be pretty detrimental to that healing power of nature and our vitality and resilience. So I believe symptoms are a gift. Right? We're always trying to create balance, often in the background, again, to survive and to procreate. So, I'd like to introduce a new science. This is often called German New Medicine or the New Medicine. It's a paradigm of the connection between body and mind. So, this is not the Holy Grail and by no means an extensive review. This is just like brushing the surface. I'd like to introduce it just as a foundation, as a way to see the body and mind as one thing versus what we're often been taught is that they're two separate things. So I believe in the 1970s, this German physician named Dr. Hammer, it all started with him. He was a physician at the time, head internist at a cancer clinic in Munich, and he was formerly known for his invention of the Hammer scalpel. So he was well known in the medical field, in the medical community. He got a phone call that his son was tragically shot, and he was able to make it, and make it to his son. His son died in his arms. So he experienced the shock of his son being shot and this conflict of losing his son. Shortly after, he was diagnosed and he got treated for testicular cancer. But then he started to question. He recognized that he didn't have any red flags. He didn't have any family history or any real reason why he would have developed testicular cancer as far as he knew from his education. And again, ironically, he was working on a cancer ward at the time. So he was able to start asking questions. So he investigated his patients. He learned that all of his patients had experienced a shock of some kind, just like himself. He was able to take it even further and do brain scans on all of his patients. And he noticed that on all of these brain scans, he could compare them with medical records. What I mean by that is he would see a concentric lesion at a very specific location in the brain that was very dependent on what type of cancer the patient had. So, to his amazement, he found a clear correlation between certain types of conflict shocks. So, I just want to back up for a second and look at his case. And again, this was a way of understanding cancer, and it is scientifically proven, although not mainstream knowledge for many reasons, which you can imagine. But you can apply this to something as simple as the common cold or a sore throat. In his case, he had the conflict shock of losing an offspring, of losing his son. A concentric lesion formed in a very specific point or part of the brain that then told the body to proliferate tissue to the testes. If we look at this from an evolutionary perspective, again, survival and procreation being the two main goals, we see that in order to resolve the conflict, one would want to create new offspring, thus proliferation of tissue to the testes. This blows my mind. I don't know about you, but it just makes so much sense. So again, we're not going to go into every little detail, but he has shown a correlation between different body tissues in relation to their embryological origin, as well as taken it even further to show that bacteria is naturally present in the body. And when it is, for example, because it hasn't been compromised by antibiotics or vaccination, it will come to the area of proliferation and break down that tissue. This is super fascinating. And just like if that didn't click with you, rewind and re-listen or do a little investigation of your own, because it's truly a magical thing in my opinion. And I don't know why we're not taught this in medical school. I don't know why this isn't common knowledge, but it makes a lot of sense. Okay? So, if anything, it's time to shed the fear. Again, most of us have been taught to fear symptoms, to fear disease. Conventional medicine focuses on preventing symptoms from expressing themselves, not in identifying and treating the root cause. And that's why most of us are left with this burning question of why. Why did my body start to create autoantibodies? Why did my gut start to form ulcers, right? Like, why in a deeper sense than physiology, microbiology, biochemistry, etc. So, when we suppress symptoms, we're actually driving them deeper into the body. Symptoms are the expression of healing. So, if we aren't listening and we're trying to cover them up or suppress them, we're driving that inflammation, that dis-ease deeper into the body. So there's an example that I'll give you, and this is actually a true story, maybe a little bit off from the true story, but a teacher of mine was a naturopathic doctor who had formerly been a pharmacist. And part of why she left the field was because she would experience patients like these, where they would come in because their doctor recommended a hypertensive medication. Their blood pressure was a little high, so they came in for a medication. And months later, they would come in for a higher dose or a different hypertensive. What I believe is that the body is going to get louder and louder, and its vitality, as long as it's there, is going to push through. The high blood pressure is there for a reason. It's a message. And if we are pushing it deeper, it's going to try and compensate and push through to create balance. So we go in for a new medication. Well, now that's under control, but the deeper level is that now the lipids are showing up real high. And so the patient's prescribed a statin. They come in for a statin. No big deal. Okay, maybe the lab's normalized, but they're kept on the statin because their doctor believes that that's what they need. That patient comes back a few months later, the inflammation is driven even deeper, and now they're on an anti-diabetic medication. And this continues and continues. And this is not made up. This happens. This happens in the real world. You might even know somebody who has had a similar experience. The truth is simply that symptoms are the expression of healing. What we've learned through our very brief intro to German New Medicine is that every thought has a physiologic counterpart in the body. We cannot see the two as separate. The mind and body are not separate, right? There would be no manifestation of disease in the body if it weren't for the mind. And so symptoms are indeed the message that most of us have been taught to run from, when in truth, healing occurs in that space. So again, this new paradigm, it allows us to remain in a state of awareness. When we let go of fear, we're brought into awareness. And with this new paradigm, awareness becomes our default. So if any of you grew up in the 90s, you'll remember the Magic Eye optical illusion. It was a book usually, and the illusion would look like a bunch of pixelated colors. It would look like nothing at first on paper. And if you focused on it in a certain way, a car would emerge. You would see a car in this illusion space. And once you saw it, you could look away. And when you looked back, it would still be there. Like you just couldn't unsee that car. So that's what's happening with this new paradigm. When we are able to truly grasp the connection between mind, body, and that symptoms are not random, we can't unsee what we've just seen. This becomes the new truth. The truth that was always there, but that most of us never learned. We shift from seeking outside of ourselves to trusting within. So if just a thought or a spark for you has occurred, just know that you have the foundation to begin to ignite your inner healer, right? You may be sitting there with a little skepticism, and I invite that. I invite you to question everything you hear, everything you learn. Go do a little bit more digging. Let yourself settle into this and make your own choices. But what I do want you to take away from this is that the healing power of nature is your birthright. This vital force runs through you. And at some point in your life, obstacles have been placed in the way. And it is possible and probable that doing this work we'll start to remove obstacles. We'll start to unveil the true root cause of disease and suffering. We'll awaken the healer within by stepping back into our true purpose, into our authenticity. So again, you are the revolution. Remember that you do what you do out of a desire to survive. So stepping back into the unconditional I am, it may feel a bit unsafe because most of us have been running from it our entire lives. What I mean by that is that at a certain point in time, we left that unconditional state to adopt beliefs that we genuinely believed we needed in order to survive. And we step further and further away from our true purpose in order to survive. Right? So it takes bravery to look at suffering this way and to really grasp its true root cause. It requires a level of vulnerability and accountability. This is uncomfortable because it's not what we've been taught. We've been taught to run from this, to run from the discomfort. And we live under the illusion that we're actually doing the right thing because it feels comfortable. But I challenge that. It all starts with your willingness to step outside of the illusion that has become your reality and back into authenticity. So this wraps up part 1. Next time, we will be diving into this new sense of awareness. And with that, with awareness as our default, we start to see all the choices that we have laid out in front of us. We see the choices we have been making, and we can consciously decide what we would like to continue to choose and what we'd like to continue to let go. So I will see you next time.